All right. So
whenever you want.
Oh, yeah. How do I usually introduce people?
What's up, guys?
All right. So we got Jess on the podcast. What's going on? How you been today?
I've been good. How are you?
Good. We just went through a whole conversation about, fasting, coffee, eating meals, and we'll probably still keep that in the podcast. But I'm just really happy and excited that you're here today, just to talk about all the things that come with, honestly, the female body, right? Like, you're my first female guest on the podcast, which is awesome.
Wow, what a great honor.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring somebody on who brought a lot of not just experience, but knowledge, but empowerment. And you're also strong in your faith, which I really appreciate. When Jay had told me 3 different people, I made sure to look at their profile, and luckily I came upon you and I saw that you were so big on your religion and your faith. And so that was big to me, because that's the whole reason why I made the podcast.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, all glory to God.
But I also want people who not just are spiritually sound, but physically sound, because I feel that creates a healthy temple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with that, that's kind of why I made sure to reach out to you on Instagram. And I always feel a little nervous before I reach out to people, because you never know if they're going to say no or not. And it's kind of like a cold DM, because you never meet some people and you're
That's
like,
so
I never
true,
met
yeah.
this person. And it's like, I'm already asking them for something. You know what I mean? And so it kind of comes off really bad.
I didn't get that
Cool.
assumption, not at all. I was
Okay.
like, what, me, for real? Yeah, heck yeah, let's do
That's
this.
so dope.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for giving me
yeah.
the opportunity to even just answer your questions and the opportunity to speak. I prayed before I walked in here. I just hope whoever's listening, like, you find value in everything that we say and you just feel seen.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, what we were just literally discussing right now was eating all these different meals in a day, how we basically go about our diet, our routine. Why don't you just go ahead and just walk me through, like, your daily routine? Like, you
So
wake up in the
good,
morning,
yeah.
start your day. How do you go? Do you read your Bible? When do you eat? When do you go to bed? Just give me a
Yeah.
rundown of your entire routine right now.
Okay, so call me crazy, but I wake up at 3 a.m.
What?
I wake up at 3 a.m. Monday through Friday. Saturday's like the one day where I'll probably wake up around 5 a.m. or 4.
I need to step up my game.
But I do it because through the years of me being a personal trainer, I've always had that 5 a.m. client. No matter what, I always had a 5 a.m. And so I had to learn, okay, if I expect my client to come in bright-eyed, fully rested, with a good meal in their system, ready to work and ready to take instruction from me, I need to put myself in a position to where I'm fully at my best. And so the liberty of my job has always allowed me to be able to, like, take my breaks, come home, do a quick errand, do this, go home, touch myself up a little bit, maybe change, shower if I wanted to. Although I recognize that's also time consuming when you're running home and doing, the little bits of errands in between. So the reason I get up at 3 a.m. is because I really set the tone for my day. I recognized if I start my day off with setting my intention, praying, giving thanks to God the first thing I do when I wake up, starting the shower, starting my coffee. And while those 2 things are brewing, I kind of do a quick little stretch in the living room. I kind of have my yoga mat already out. And that's kind of the biggest thing about it, is that, like, you kind of prep yourself the night before so that your morning routine kind of goes swiftly, which means, I have my gym outfit kind of picked out. The yoga mat's already out. And while I'm doing that, I get my coffee. Then I go over to my Bible at the coffee table. And I have, like, a index card that's on rings, I should say. And I have, like, daily scriptures that I read to myself for every day. And they're essentially affirmations that I read and proclaim over my life. And then I go into whatever chapter of the book that I'm reading right now. I'm in Matthew. So I've been reading into Matthew. I'll do 30 minutes, and I usually have a timer at 3:30 that goes off. That's how I kind of know, like, to wrap up, do my ending prayer, jump in the shower, get that done. Then I start my morning routine. I get myself ready.
Wait, pause really quick.
Go ahead.
So you haven't even started getting to the gym yet.
No.
And you've already done, like, 3 or 4 different things that have to do with, like, your faith. That's big. You know what I mean?
And one thing too is that, like, let's say I wake up late, right? Let's say I wake up at 4 a.m. Oh, shoot, I don't have time to open up the Bible right now. Okay, well, let's listen to some worship music while you get ready. There's still so many ways where I've learned to implement just spending time with God before my day, because the days that I don't, I feel it. I feel empty. I feel like I'm responding in my flesh. I feel like I'm having a harder time being present. I
or
feel like
more irritated for me. I get you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I feel like, I'm giving people just the bare minimum that day, and knowing that my client I'm their first personal training session of their day. They could be my fifth. I don't want them to know that. I want them to feel just like, wow, Jess really cares for me. She's looking out for me. She was expecting me. She knows what we're ready to do today. And I want them to have that feeling of like, you're my first client every time they come in to see me. How do I do that? I need to start my day off with God. Like, he is truly the foundational base of what feeds me and what overpours into my clients. And just over the years of working with so many different types of people, like, some people do require a little bit more time, more devotion, more, dedication. And with that, like, you have to have it within you to give to your clients. Like, my clients have 24-hour access to me, which means like I'm on the clock all the time. And so back to my morning routine.
Yeah.
I get ready. My car automatically starts at 4:30, warms up, which that's the super cool thing about.
What do you mean? Like, it's on a timer?
It's on a timer every day. So that's how to a T I am to my routine. And it's just allowed me to really thrive in all that I do. And we'll get into like the importance of, sticking to your routine that works for you and finding one that, you can truly sustain over time. That's needless to say when you need to make like flexibility in it though. So usually I get to the gym latest by 5 a.m. I would love to grab a Starbucks on the way there, but unfortunately they're not open yet. So I usually get there, I let my clients in and we stretch together. Right now I have a 5 a.m. client named Julie, and she's a believer too. So we recently started listening to worship music together while we stretch. So that's been really nice. And we kind of just speak life into each other before we start. But I usually have around 3 to 4 clients in the morning. Then I get a good little break for about 2 hours, go home, walk my dog. And yeah, I usually have like another meal at that point. I do have my green pancake in the morning at 5 a.m.
What's with the green pancake? I saw that the
So
other day.
yeah, it's actually been a conversation starter for the whole year. So my coach, when I was going through prep, had me eating spinach and egg whites together and then oatmeal and blueberries on the side. And I saw that on my meal plan and I was like, I'm going to be super frank with you. If you want me to make it to the end, this has to go. Like, we got to do something with this meal, because I cannot do egg whites and spinach. I've just done it for so long, and it's a food aversion I have to the way that egg whites taste with spinach. It's so gross to me. I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you love egg whites with spinach. I have nothing against you. I just wish we can have a conversation about why, because I don't know how we can. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I started blending it all together and then pouring it into a pan and topping it off with the blueberry. So it's a spinach pancake, essentially.
Spinach pancake,
It's
okay.
a spinach and egg pancake. And the way to make it any better than what it is right now is you just add a packet of stevia in it. Or 2.
And do you put like some low-calorie chocolate chips on there?
Yeah,
or does that,
yeah. So I have dark chocolate chips
Okay.
that are from Enjoy Life, if you haven't heard of the brand yet. But they're gluten-free and dairy-free dark chocolate chips. So I'll sprinkle a little bit of that and do
Okay,
about
that's
15
good.
grams.
That's way more
Yeah.
doable. And so you have your green pancake. Is that, and that's in the morning, right?
That's in the morning.
So you just got done with your meal and you're done with clients at that point? Is that your whole day?
No, so I'll go back home. I'll have my next meal. It's usually chicken and sweet potato or chicken and rice. That's what I have like as a pre-workout meal with a little bit of pineapple. But if I want to have fun that day, I'll have maybe like some candy if I wanted to. And I just,
Right.
I right now what I'm doing is I'm flexible tracking. So as long as it fits my macros and
Whatever fits your macros.
Yeah, yeah. And there's give and take with that too. It's not like
Right.
I'm eating a bit of candy every day. It's, maybe I had it Tuesday, Friday, and the other days I'm having like the pineapple, for example.
Well, it's the 80-20 rule. Like
Yeah.
as long as you're doing something that you can stick to over time, because at some point you're going to cave in and
Yeah.
you're better off eating like a snack as a pre-workout
fitting
meal
it in.
or fitting it in
Yeah,
somehow
where it doesn't
rather
jeopardize
than
you.
waiting on Friday and Saturday. You've been depriving yourself of all those sweets all week, and now you're going to binge on Friday and Saturday.
And I have a history
Right.
of binge eating. So when I first started my journey, and me doing my first prep prematurely led me down a huge spiral of binge eating and figuring out what insulin sensitivity even was and how I can reverse myself out of the steep deficit that I was in. But where were we going with all of this? Oh, the routine. So yeah, chicken and rice. And then I head to the gym. I usually train for 3 hours. I train for a while.
So what do you, okay.
You're like, what are you doing for 3
Yeah,
hours? I train
see-
like I've always just trained like a bodybuilder. I take my time on every muscle group. I track all my workouts. I do progressive overload. I also assess myself at the end of the workout. I write little commentary, how did I feel, if I had to cut anything short, if anything was pulling, tugging, straining, any of that. I spend 10 minutes in the sauna. It's mandatory. It's really good for you guys.
Sauna's really good for you.
Sauna's really good for you. If you're struggling with low testosterone, please go in the sauna for 10 minutes
What
after
other
your
benefits does
workout.
the sauna
Low
have?
T.
Low
Go to the
T,
sauna.
yes. Yeah, for sure. And cold showers.
Cold showers too. Yeah,
Natural ways
right
to
in the
reduce your
morning to wake
testosterone.
you up. And
yes,
for sure.
I tried doing that for a while, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. You know,
It's
little by
more of a
little,
mental thing.
I turn the cold knob over to the cold side, and I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. And then I scream, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't. It's so tough. It's tough. But yeah, so go back to the gym. I train. I usually have another snack or meal with me. I have an intermission before my last hour of my training, and then I finish it off. And then I go home.
So you train the last part of the day. So you have all your clients in the morning after. Oh, okay. So you still have more.
Okay, so it depends on what season we're talking about. So there's a season in my year where I block off my evenings, and that's usually during daylight. Is it daylight savings time? When it's darker outside and it's earlier.
What just stopped happening?
Yeah, what
recently?
just stopped happening? What is that?
That's
because we're in
don't
daylight
know.
savings time now. So when
I
it's
always get
not
confused.
daylight, when it's the winter time, okay, let's just say that. When it's the winter and fall time, I close off my evenings because my clientele does, let's just be on, I'm being super frank, my clientele, they don't want to come to the gym after work when it's cold and rainy and it's, you know, it's dark outside and it's been dark outside since 4 p.m. and they just got off at 6. They're less likely. So what we do is we meet on a Saturday morning. So that's why I had mentioned, like, I do train Saturday mornings. If I'm not working evenings, then I'll be there Saturday working with my evening clients.
Okay. That makes sense.
So yeah, so it really depends. Like, I'll have to come back sometimes, like if I have an afternoon client at 12 or 1 or 2. Right now, the latest I'm taking a client is 4 p.m. So it truly just depends on who I'm seeing for the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much your entire day. Like you're training, you're eating, you're filling your mind and spirit with the Word of God in the morning. And do you do anything to finish off the night? Like, do you usually maybe
Have a
read
nighttime
more
routine.
or?
Yeah. So right now what I started doing is around 6 p.m. I've already had my last meal, taken my shower and everything, but I have my yoga mat out still, and I've been foam rolling.
Yeah.
And I also have like a lacrosse ball that I've been kind of doing my hamstring tie-in, my glutes, all of that good stuff. But I also spend the last 30 minutes with God again, reading the last bit of whatever scripture chapter that I was on. I do my nightly prayer, but on the Bible app, you can also listen to the scripture. So I'll usually play like scripture as I'm going to bed.
Yeah, there's an app called Through the Word that one of my pastors, his name is Keaton Baker, told me, and he got it from one of our friends named, oh my gosh, slipping my mind. No. I'll remember it. I'll remember eventually. But Through the Word is a really good app because it actually reads like the Bible for you, and it takes you through an intro where it actually explains what the chapter is about before reading it.
Oh, wow.
So it gives a whole summary. So if you are interested in like something like that, Through the Word is really good.
No, seriously, I am,
Yeah.
because I'm very intrigued by my study Bible. Do you have a study Bible?
I don't have a study Bible.
What?
No.
I wish I would have brought my study Bible so I could show you my study
Yeah.
Bible. I show everybody the study Bible because it's an illustrated one. So it has pictures. Like, for example, I got to see what Noah's Ark hypothetically would have looked like. The walls of Jerusalem
pretty dope.
that Nehemiah came back to rebuild.
Gives more of a vision.
Absolutely. And for me, I don't know about you, but I love to learn with visuals. Like, I remember being in high school, middle school, and like loving textbooks and just staring at these pictures because I'm such a picture person.
Have you heard
like,
of the Bible Project on YouTube?
yes.
Do you watch them?
Yes.
Yeah. They're so
I
awesome.
watched recently. It was so nuts because on like all Easter weekend, I just stayed in my little cocoon and like watched a bunch of like walks of Jesus and what his life looked like through videos like that. And I came over the book of Revelation. Yeah, that was nuts.
It's like one of my. I've always been the most intrigued in the Book of Revelations.
Me too.
I don't really care about. I'm
Yeah.
not scared about the world
It's
ending. I'm not
intriguing,
scared
right?
about.
Every time
the
we have
end
a Bible
times.
study with our friends, we always just talk about like what happens in the end times.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah. You just gotta throw it in there. Just
we always do
I don't know,
that.
because that's what we're all leading up to at one point. I don't know. This
he
is
is
really
the alpha
deep,
and he
but
is the omega.
yeah.
So you really can't talk about the beginning without talking about the end if you
yeah.
think about it. So
and a lot of the things that are happening now is almost little proof over time that like it's coming, and everybody says it's soon, but it's always been soon since
Yeah.
forever, you know. So we don't know the day or
don't
the
know.
time he's gonna come. What are they saying? Like the swift of the night, or
It's like a thief in the night.
thief in the night. There you go.
don't know
Yeah,
what's gonna happen.
He's gonna
Yeah.
come. You know what I mean? So we don't know. We can't predict. We're not him. We're not God. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? But so just to kind of roll back into what we were talking about. So I'm really interested in your whole routine and just how you go about your day. But it kind of reminds me of the conversation we were having when we initially met. You had talked a lot about your faith first and foremost, and then your fitness. So like in your mind, what do you feel like is first in your life? Is it fitness and then faith, or is it faith and then fitness? And then how do you make sure that you continue to prioritize your faith over your fitness? Because especially in bodybuilding, it's really easy for, I've competed, right? And I've been on stage and I've been lean, and you got to look at yourself constantly, and you're constantly judging yourself. You have to have some sort of, or not have to, but you eventually just kind of get in your own head about things, and it can easily be replaced with pride, right? And so how do you keep that balance? You just told me before the podcast, I assumed you had competed before, but you just told me you didn't even compete yet. So that may be an area that you'll eventually experience, but just based off of, what I'm asking, what do you kind of think?
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. And I would say, of course, your faith should always come before anything, whether it's your job, your relationship, your marriage. If you're putting God first, then you can have full trust that he will guide the path for you. And you could also lean on him to have the boldness and the obedience and the wisdom and the maturity to really just trust him in all the areas. And so when I look at trusting God, I see it as like a beautiful privilege to see what God can truly do through me in the world of fitness. And so because had to learn, okay, what are your days like when you don't start with God, and what does that look like for you? And do you like that feeling? And it was always a no. I feel empty. I feel without. I feel like I'm lacking. I don't like the way I talk to people today. I don't really like my engagements with people today. I wish I had a bigger cup for people, and those were just thoughts I was having. And I'm like, I really want to be a beautiful representation of who Jesus Christ is through me. And the only way I can do that is to have a bigger and deeper cup to pour out of. And so how can I do that? It starts with God. And so I think that, for anyone listening and they're having a tough time putting God first, is if you can fully trust that God will put your steps in alignment, you're set. You're set. If you just really start dedicating your first 30 minutes, first 10 minutes of just writing out your prayer and setting your intention of what you want your day to look like, you will see how God will show up for you in those ways. And because of that, you'll want to come back, and you're going to want more, and you're going to want to go deeper, and you're going to want to let him into different parts of your life so that he can truly transform and renew and maybe even restore dead parts of your life that, you maybe never thought you would come back to. For a lot of people, and the people that I work with, like, as far as clients go, this is something that maybe they try to do before, and then they step back because of lack of esteem, lack of money, but if we put God first in our lives, and we put full trust that he can renew those areas in our life, then maybe we could focus a little bit more on our fitness. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because think about it, like, the biggest roadblock when it comes to people wanting to stay dedicated in fitness is usually a mental blockage.
Yeah. It's usually they just don't have the mental capacity for it. They're too busy with their schedule. And as insensitive as it may sound, I mean, a lot of the time it's excuses, right? Yeah. It's, I can't do it. And it's the lack of belief in oneself.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's one of the biggest things I preach on, with my clients, is I shouldn't want this more than you, because I believe in you. And I want you to want this as much as I want this for you. And so how can we get you there? Well, if you have a poor sense of self-esteem, then no matter how much life I try to talk over you, are you truly going to let it stick?
Yeah, you speak really big on self-esteem. I know that was something you said you struggled with for a long time, for sure.
For sure. And it will keep you captive in your own comfort zone if you're not cognizant of where your self-esteem is taking a toll on your mental health. I think last time we talked about is like, putting yourself forward and really stepping into uncharted territory. For me, it's actually fully stepping on stage. I've done 2 preps before and got sick in both of them. And through that, like, I had to learn how to accept that God's plan wasn't just for me to step on stage. I had to learn that his plan was better for me. And through him saying no, like, I learned so much about my body, what it responded best to, and actually what would be healthy for me to step into my next prep. Right. So there's always a beautiful lesson to learn in redirection, I believe. But yeah. Did I answer your question?
No, yeah. So what's your testimony? If you could give me a light summary of
great question.
Where you are. Because just throughout this conversation, I feel like if I'm going to ask you faith and then fitness, why faith?
Yeah.
And why God? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I definitely found the gym before I found my intimate, close relationship with God. So my testimony comes from, so let me just give you guys a background on how I think I was raised. I think it's kind of appropriate. So I was raised with a family who kind of practiced a little bit into Catholicism. We would go to church like on the popular holidays, the Christmases, the Easter. We were kind of that family. But I didn't really know how to pray, and I just remember, my mom giving me a cross. So I knew of God. I knew of Jesus. I didn't understand the Holy Trinity. I didn't really have an understand or grasp for it. And then, my parents got separated at the age of 8. So we moved out of Madera and we were going to the Catholic church that was there. And so, of course, through any separation, you kind of lose your... I don't want to say you lose, but it does get lost in the sense of where your morals are at, because you have mom's side, you have dad's side, and now, your family is split apart. So who's more authoritative? Who do you really listen to? Who do you really listen, lean in more to? And so my parents' practices kind of got lost through that. And as I became a teenager, I was really hungry for God. I had found very dark days through my depression. I remember I was 14 years old and I had confessed to my parents that I was suicidal. And they didn't really understand mental health back then. And they also didn't really understand why I was sad, because from the eyes of, my parents, they're like, you have everything. Like you're blessed, you're loved, you have a home, you have clothes, you have friends, and, you're good. And at the same time, I wasn't ready to open up about, the bullying that I experienced, and just, the trauma I even experienced years prior to that. And also how much the separation of my parents also hurt me too. And through that, I had to learn how to internalize a lot of what I was going through. And because of that, I felt all this heaviness, even as a young girl. And I just felt this need of like, if I want to continue the rest of my life, like I need to have an outlet. I need to find God. Like I need to figure something out, because I'm suicidal. I'm only 14. I want to live the rest of my life. I'm hearing what my parents are saying, and I do have big dreams for myself, but where did that get lost at? My parents have always been super supportive of me, very just encouraging and speaking just positive words over me since I was a little girl. And so through that, where did that get lost? I just felt like I was in such a dark place. And it wasn't until one of my friends invited me to our youth group that was at the Well at the time. And this was back like in 2015, maybe 2016. And I was like, yeah, I've never even gone to a church that would be considered other than Catholic. Like, what is that about? What do I wear? I'm like, what do I wear? What do I do? Do I bring a Bible? I don't even have one. And my friends are like, no, just come. We'll just pick you up at 6. And through that, like I kind of trickled my way into the Christian belief. I was going to youth group. I got hooked. I loved it. I just, I remember crying and just ultimately feeling the Holy Spirit when, they were praying over me and just welcoming me in. And through that, I got a small glimpse of what the Christian belief is, who Jesus is, what God is. And I did feel his tug on my heart and wanting to just, pull me in closer. But just like any other teenager, you're stuck between a road of wanting to live for God, and maybe people still now, you're wanting to live for God, but you have all of these worldly tugs at you of come do this, come hang out with us. Wait, you don't want to hang out with us anymore? Well, that's
Just to touch a little bit on what you're talking about, I think the difference between Christianity and a lot of other religions is Christianity is one of the only religions where Jesus, yes, he's perfect. Yes, he is undeserving of dying on the cross for our sins, right? Like we deserve that. But we can have a personal relationship with God. Yes. We can have a personal relationship with Jesus. And I don't feel like, and I feel like, I feel like Christianity is the epitome of having a personal relationship with Christ. And that's what Christianity is. It's believing in Christ, right? And when Jesus came to earth, he didn't come in a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? He came
as a servant.
Yeah, and he came humbly, right? And so Jesus met us where we're at, and he will still meet us where we are at, and I think Christianity is so big on that, and that's what I see. I feel is one of the biggest differences between that and other religions, for sure.
I absolutely agree. And I will say that coming from a Catholicism just point of view, because that's what I was exposed to first, it was a list of the commandments, a list of do's and don'ts, going through catechism, going through your first communion, and going through these different steps to reach holiness and righteousness, versus, being introduced to the Christian belief where if you believe that Jesus Christ died for your sins, he is the Son of God, and that he can bring you salvation. He is the true healer, the way, the life, and the only way to heaven. So through that, like, he wants a loving relationship with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why he came down as a son. He didn't come, like you said, with the Lamborghini, but he didn't come as a king. Imagine just in our arrogance and pride, how we would respond if he did.
Right. Yeah.
We would definitely reject him.
Yeah.
So the way he came down is through a womb that's already a relationship. Made brothers, made sisters, made disciples. It's all through relationships. And that's why I think a lot about my job and how much it's personal and how much I do need God. Because think about all the discipling that Jesus did. Think about all the teaching, all the walking, all the talking that he did. And did he get tired? Yes. But guess who he had on his side? God. And guess who we have? God. Like, we have him. And if we lean into him, like, we can do greater things.
Yeah.
Than we can on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I just wanted to throw that in there because I feel like there's just huge differences between Catholicism and Christianity, and there's no knock on anything. I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful. I'm just trying to be specific on the difference between Christianity and then other beliefs. You know what I mean? So,
no, definitely.
So and you went to the well. You know what I mean?
I did go to the well, yeah. And then after that, I fell off my faith. I got into a relationship, and at the time, I hadn't dated till I was 18. And so, me never dating and then being in a relationship, I was like, woohoo, time to move out, be an adult. And I'm like, wait, what am I doing?
Dang,
am I really ready to do this?
So, and just to clarify, you're moving out with your boyfriend at the time?
My boyfriend at the time, yeah. And I just, by nature, anyone who's listening, and even back then, like, you could never tell me no. I was going to do whatever I wanted to do because I have that innate kind of reaction. If I want to get something done, I want to get it done. If I want that for myself, I'm going to achieve it. If I want this degree, I'm going to go for it. If I want this credential, I'm going to go for it. If I want this job, I'm going to go for it. If I want to live with this guy, I'm going to go for it. And as much as I fail and as much as I learn through that process, I have fully accepted that that's just what my walk is going to be like. It's going to be experiences and it's going to be failure. And I accepted that at a very early age on. And so I was willing to take very bold risks without God. And so it put me in predicaments where I was very lonely. I wasn't in the greatest relationships. They were unhealthy and toxic. And I also had a hard time letting go. I recognized I had people-pleasing tendencies. I recognized ultimately like where my insecurities attracted these people into my life. And I wanted God. I think it wasn't until... I was a serial dater. Like, it was unfortunate of the fact that
that you hopped from relationship to relationship.
Yeah. And it's nuts looking back, because I would look back and say things like, I just love being in a relationship. Like, I love love. And I do love to share my life, but I was so young. I didn't even have a life to share. I wanted to instead create a life with somebody else. And
you love love, but you need Jesus's love.
Exactly.
You don't need love from another man.
Exactly.
Every single time,
yeah. And now that I know that, and that's why I go so hard for Jesus, because I'm like, you are what I was missing this entire time. And you're giving me a love I've never felt or seen or touched or tasted. And it's so real. Like, anyone who's listening and you're a girl and you can just resonate with my story of, going from relationship to relationship, just, maybe it's not even like, for me, I look back and I'm like, wow, that wasn't even intentional. Like, I didn't recognize I was only giving myself 4 months of singleness, 3 months, 6 months. Maybe I think the longest back then I had given myself was 9 months. And I was so young, think about all the damage and the heartbreak, and just even reflecting, let's say it didn't even end badly, but just the reflecting that you need to take after something so huge and monumental in your life just ended. Like, you need time to heal, and you also have things to work through, I'm sure. And so I had things to work through, and the way to avoid that was just going into the next one and bringing that with me, and then going to the next one and bringing that with me, and then bringing that in. Because when you're in that, I don't want to say low of a place, but when you are just insecure and you're just wanting to be with somebody, wanting to be loved, coming from a place of, I just pick me. you're also dealing with people who are in the same space.
Right.
You know, the insecurity, the feeling the void, you're using one another to just create each other's happiness. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think you should be in a relationship to say you need to come in to complete me.
Yeah. And then at that point, you gave your life to Christ, I'm guessing, right?
And then
you made Jesus
Yeah.
the sole part of your love that you're willing to give.
And so we'll get into that because it wasn't until I left a relationship last year and I was fully just ready to give my life to God. I prayed throughout the entire relationship, like, please show me a sign that I'm meant to be in this world still. Please show me a sign that, you know, you're hearing my prayers, because sometimes I feel like they're not being answered. Maybe did I really step out of your will that much? Like I'm, you know, just coming with repentance and just with the honest heart of like wanting to seek him.
Right.
And, you know, when I left the relationship, I was just so ready to get back in church because I knew that I was going to find him there. So my friends, Angelica and Kayla, they invited me to come back to Via because I had gone. And like I said, I was a serial dater, and in between, I was still trying to get back to God. So I'd break up, then go back to church, then I'd get into a relationship, then I'd stop going to church. We'd break up, I'd go back to church. And it was just a consistent cycle of me trying to find God, you know, and it wasn't until I was just sick of my own shit. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm giving you all of it, God, because what I'm doing with my life is not leading me down a road of prosperity, happiness, success. I'm giving it to you. And the moment that I let God fully into my heart, he truly revealed to me the places that he needed to sit in myself. He completely dismantled what I thought was important to me, what I thought was valuable. And he said, no, I'm going to show you a new set of standards, a new set of love, so that you can now have this foundational love, what our relationship looks like, so that when you do want to find a partner, when you are ready again, you know what you're searching for, and you know when it comes and it's not from me. Too. I think that's also important.
Yeah. And to your point, like the first thing that pops up in my head when you're just talking about all this is the fact that you had all this baggage and you just said, you know, hey, I'm going to give you all my crap, you know, but yet you're going to give me so many beautiful things in return, right?
Yeah.
It's salvation, you know, love, grace, mercy, all these things that God gives you in return, when all you have to show for is all the sin you have, all the crap you did, all the times. And if you look at it like a relationship, Jesus is over here at church, and Jesus is over here in the Bible, and Jesus is in your life, and then every time you're getting close to him, you find something worldly, and you leave him, and he's like, yo, like, I thought we were getting something going.
Cool.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And definitely.
And that it goes back to the whole,
I had to grieve
he wants a relationship.
I had to grieve those experiences, though.
Right.
Like, through my faith walk with him, like, I would have to think back to the times where I did come to him, or I did step back in church, or I did pick up the Bible again, or I did just try to seek for his truth. And I just remember being like, wow, like, I forgot. Like, and there's more to find out. The closer you become to him, the more you seek him, he'll show up in different ways you've never thought that he is. Like, God is supernatural.
Yeah.
As
You
a
know,
more, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I was going to say, as a more mature believer now, do you still find yourself like struggling? Well, not all the time, but like having those moments where you do go away from him because of like worldly things?
No, that's such a good question. I was, like I said, I was really, really done with putting the steering wheel in my hands, because I had just taken full responsibility for where my life was at, and full responsibility for the level of unhappiness I was at. And because if you think back to all the decisions that we made without God, we think what we're doing is right. And through those decisions, like, I never went into a relationship being like, well, I hope this is it. No, I was fully ready to commit to this person, wanting to be loved, wanting to build a good foundation of a relationship, and it not turning out the way I wanted to. So when I was in those relationships, I remember, you know, feeling that sense of like God telling me, like, this is not where you're supposed to be, and this is why it's failing. Come to me. But that's a big leap of faith coming from somebody who doesn't know the word that way and doesn't know God that way, because I didn't have that relationship just growing up or trying to sustain it enough, right? It was always just like popping in, touching the relationship here and there, mending it here and there, you know, and trying to water that, but not really pouring into God. And it wasn't until like I said, you know, I was just done. Like, I had truly just came to God with repentance and said, hey, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
All the times that, I heard you tapping on my heartstrings, and all the times I felt like, where are my signs that this person isn't for me? Where is my sign that I'm making the wrong decisions? And you were there screaming at me, but was I willing to listen? And I wasn't.
Yeah, and sometimes you really do have to fall flat on your face. And I think God lets us do that sometimes just because that makes us realize, wait, I do need you, and like similar to your story, when I really gave my life to Christ, because I've been a Christian all my life, and I won't give my entire testimony because I can give that another time. But when I gave my life really personally to Christ, it was after high school, right? Because it's one thing when your parents take you to church, you say a prayer at VBS and Vacation Bible School, and you do these things, and you do believe in God, but you're also a kid and you'll believe in anything. You know what I mean? And so you get older and you start to make your own decisions. Now you have to drive yourself to church, and you have to come to the conclusion whether you truly believe in something or not. And I never doubted that God was real, but I didn't take my faith seriously. I didn't take my relationship with him seriously. And I had to go through a bunch of crap. And I'm not saying I've been through the absolute worst, trauma in the past, but I just had to make a lot of mistakes and feel crappy about myself. And to your point where you talk about, and I like to be very forefront about this. You talk about the toxic relationships you were in. I'm sure you were toxic, but I'm sure they were more toxic, right? But I was that toxic guy, right? And so my struggle was realizing that I was that person and hating myself because of it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting but I didn't want to be the individual that I was anymore. And so I had gone to Adventure Church at the time, and the pastor there, Pastor Anthony, was talking about the story of David. And I think it's such a good story because, David was the guy who was the apple of God's eye, the Bible says, right? But how can you be the apple of God's eye and do the sins and deeds and things that he did, right? Killing off people to get his way, and not just his way, but to hide his sin. You know what I mean? And it's just insane and if you've ever heard of the story of David and heard this part, it's a wild story to read, but definitely look it up in the Bible. But after hearing that story of just how, God looks at David, yet how many mistakes he made, it made me realize, wait, I am worth it. Wait, I can have God's love, and I need to search for that. And then that's when I started going to Cross City. That's where I met some of my best friends, Cross City Christian Church in Fresno. And that's where I met my wife, and that's where my whole life started, was when once I gave my life to Christ. You know what I mean?
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And to piggyback off of what you said, I forgot what I was going to say right now. How when you do finally give your life to God and you take it in a serious manner, you want just that. I forgot to say that. I want just God. And so that means literally just following the Bible, just reading the Bible, just being fed by his word. Even down to, listening mainly to worship music. And if it's just not coming from God, it's an absolute no for me, because I know that if it's not from him, it's not for me. And I just have full faith in that. And so to answer, your question, if I ever have a hard time with going back, I don't, because I've done that. And like I said, I dabbled the going back and this and that. And I recognize that, okay, even when I feel so good about the decisions that I'm making and I feel like this is right, I still don't know any better, because the plans that God has is so above what I can even fathom or, understand from my own brain.
Yeah.
I just have to have full trust in him. Yeah. And that's also too, trusting that, you're not missing opportunities. Because I think that people are afraid of trusting God. Well, how do I know that if I trust in God, these opportunities won't pass me, or if I don't go for that, and if it's not for you. You have to have full faith in what God can do in your life and through you, and you have to fully lean into that in just that. And
you're talking about being fed spiritually, and we're having such a good conversation about God, faith, and I do want to also talk about feeding yourself physically and how that kind of implicates how you walk as an individual. And this is just my theory and this is just my belief, but I've kind of come upon the conclusion that if I'm physically better, I'm better for the kingdom. You know what I mean? I'm better. My temple's better. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to spread the word of God better. So let's talk a little bit about, the physical side of it, right? Because there is a physical and a spiritual side to having a temple and being a Christian. You know what I mean?
God wants us to take care of our bodies. And when you go into the Bible and you read that actually like our bodies never even belong to us to begin with. They're just vessels that he placed the Holy Spirit within. Like, and you see it that way. You're like, oh, this temple is not even mine. This is God's temple. And when you learn who God is and you see like the provider, the healer, the teacher, just the ultimate love that he has, you're like, how could I not repay him by just taking myself on a simple walk every day?
Right.
By just not choosing to not have the donuts this morning and instead making myself an omelet type of, decisions. And so like God wants us to take care of our bodies in the way that is beneficial, because how could we be great disciples or even of service to the world if we're down in bed paralyzed or, we're struggling with X, Y, and Z diseases because of poor decisions that we've made over time? He doesn't want that for us. He wants us to thrive.
I think he wants us to have high energy, have high libido, have the will and drive to continue to not just spread his word, but do good for people.
Yeah, to
and
go
spread
serve
love.
people.
You know what I mean? And I don't know how I would be spreading, how much love I would be spreading right now if I was still 210 pounds at 5'8" and unhealthy. You know, I just don't and that's the truth. I have so much more confidence now because I was changing my body physically over time, and now I have changed my body physically. I have the confidence to start a podcast because you know what I'm saying? Like, because I've always been an individual who has had a bad self-esteem as well, to the point where my mom has reminded me in the past, and I think I told you this when we had that meeting the other week, that I would go up to my mom when I was a kid, and I don't know why I would do this, but I would literally go up to my mom and tell her, "Mom, why am I so ugly?" Aww. It's funny. It was like so stupid because we're all in elementary school, and I'm telling my mom this. It's like, why? And my mom always worried, and my mom would tell me even, a few years ago, like I don't know why, son, but you've never had confidence. Like, why don't you just believe in yourself? Why don't you have confidence? And that's something that it's hard, to shake. But becoming physically fit actually gave me that confidence, and now I'm at the point where I've been able to post stuff on Instagram and show my thoughts, even though they might, to some people they might be wrong, or to some people it might be controversial, they might not agree. Even though those thoughts run through my head, I just post it anyways and just do it. And that's not from just gaining the confidence over time just because it happened. I think God used that physical transformation for me to also spiritually transform in later on in my life. You know what I mean? And so I feel like it's such a huge part in my faith walk as well.
Okay, well, let's just be frank. When you look at somebody who's in good shape, what do you think? They value themselves. They have their priorities straight.
True.
You do. And that's just, and those are just two simple plain facts. You see somebody who's in shape, you're like, well, they have their priorities straight. They value themselves.
Disciplined,
They're disciplined. Yeah. And let's just say, okay, so if God wants us to be disciplined, he wants us to value ourselves. Where are we getting those innate feelings from? From him. He wants you to care for yourself. He wants you to pick foods that make you feel good. And if we get down to the science behind food, like there is a psychological effect that correlates to the kinds of foods that we feed ourselves. Right. If you're feeding yourselves the greens, the reds, the veggies, the proteins, the carbohydrates, the fats, you're more than likely going to have a better rate at processing things. You're probably going to have better stamina, like you mentioned. You're probably going to have better mobility, flexibility, all that great stuff. Yeah. Now, if you're feeding yourself a lot of processed foods, a lot of packaged foods, you're probably not going to feel the greatest. You're probably going to be lethargic and sleepy. And then you're probably going to need coffee by 5 p.m. to get to do the rest of your day.
I saw these studies on Instagram the other day that were showing, I think, over 65% of children, most of their diet is I think 70 to 80% processed food. It's insane.
It is insane. And I think cooking is so important to learn. I do. I think that's a big roadblock that a lot of people, men and women, can both say that they have when it comes to eating clean is, okay, well, I like the way my mom cooks, but I can't eat that. Well, we can, but we just need to make a couple substitutions. Maybe let's not use lard. Let's use extra virgin olive oil. Instead of using pork, maybe let's use some ground turkey or ground beef, right. Instead of using mayonnaise and all this other stuff, let's choose a different kind of fat.
Yeah.
So it's always just teaching your client, like, okay, what is it that you're used to eating and how can we mimic that here at home? And simple things like learning how to air fry, learning how to bake, how to saute, just a couple things with different flavors, like really helps bring you so much further in your dieting lifestyle. Because the biggest thing I always get back is, I hate my food. It's so boring. It doesn't taste good. I'm like, okay, well, walk me through what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, I'd hate that too. Like,
You're boiling your chicken.
You're
bro.
boiling your chicken and you're boiling everything all together actually, and then serving it to yourself with no salt or pepper. So, you know what I mean? So I
need
think
some salt, man. I'm a salty kind of guy. You know what I mean?
I'm a seasoned gal. Like I love
lemon pepper,
season.
Goated.
I'm using Kinders.
Air frying has changed my life.
Yeah, heck yeah. When I would have male clients and they're like, I don't know how to cook, I'm like, dude, get yourself an air fryer and I'll show you.
I like how you say male clients.
Male?
Because you're saying they don't know how to cook.
No. I
see that. I see that. Dang.
Okay, well, if we want to get real, no, it's just that, okay, if you're in a room full of 10 people and half of them are female, half of them are male, I'd say, how many of you guys have an air fryer? What percentage of the people do you think are going to raise your hand? At least all 5 of the women are going to say they have an air fryer. It's very rare that guys are like, yeah, let me buy this awesome air fryer.
Yeah, I feel like
they're the greatest though.
Only
They're
if
the
you're a
greatest.
bodybuilder, and even if you're a bodybuilder, it's not like you're cooking up gourmet meals. You're just making chicken and rice.
You're making quick stuff. Yeah,
Right.
You know, crock pot. You're getting Instapot. Crock pot I love doing for like my bigger pieces of meat, and I do like a thing of salsa in there, a little bit of salt and pepper. Close that bad boy up. Let it cook overnight. In the morning, shred it up and put it into your Tupperware.
Taco seasoning or something.
Yeah,
Oof.
dude. Seriously, this is things that I tell my clients all the time. They're like, I don't know how to cook. I'm like, get yourself a mini crock pot. Pick out your favorite salsa, get a seasoning, and call me when you're done.
Well, that's what I tell people too. Is there's only like so many carbs and so many
different combinations.
You know what I'm saying?
Make, yeah.
Like you're probably gonna go to In-N-Out and have a burger and fries anyways. Why not make
me today?
Why not make literally?
I'm gonna go after this.
Me too. Actually, should we all go?
Why don't you just go home and make beef and potatoes? It's the same thing.
Well, this is what I tell my clients all the time. I'm like, okay, what are your favorite things to eat? They're like, I love burgers. I love Chipotle, pizza, all that stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give you all of these recipes, but you're gonna learn how to make like pizza in your breakfast. You're gonna learn how to make your Chipotle bowl, but at home. You're gonna learn how to make, you know, your Kung Pao chicken, but at home with different ingredients. And you can remake a lot of this with like spicy coconut aminos, some cashews, some cut up bell pepper, sesame seeds, like, and it's just really breaking it down to people. I think a lot of people, if you don't have an eye for it, you are super blind to it. You are. And so it's not until a coach comes and tells you like, hey, like what you love to eat out there is not hard for you to mimic at home. Here's how.
I've watched a lot of Instagram accounts that make, like they mimic food that's really good with like substitutions, but like they make it like look really good too. Like, have you ever seen those accounts where like they make it like look super good and it is good. Like I've tried them. Yeah. Like where like the protein's way higher, the carbs are lower, the calories are just half. Like,
no,
would you say like,
for that.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm very for that. I think if you can find a sustainable way to eat and it works for you and you like the way you feel, it's giving you great biofeedback, meaning you're sleeping well, you're digesting well, you have great energy, you're not having bloating, not having constipation, any of that, and it just works for you and you love what you're eating, don't change it.
Just to touch on biofeedback, that word meaning how your body responds to something, right? Like, I think it's important to understand on like the fact that you have to actually pay attention, right? Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna eat this, and it's like, oh yeah, I felt fine. Well, it's like, did you really analyze how you felt? Yeah. Like I'll eat specific foods and be like, oh wow, I had to go to the restroom right away. I wonder why. Or wow, I felt this thing in my stomach. I wonder why. Right? Or man, after I ate that food, my energy just dropped. Why? Right? And so you kind of almost have to be very self-evaluative, ask a lot of questions to yourself and really think about what you're doing so you can actually analyze that biofeedback and make the necessary changes to live your absolute best life and take care of your temple. You know what I mean?
And that's what I do with my clients is like, okay, so let's say you're a client of mine, you have a meal plan right now where there's different substitutions that you can pick out. That way you have multiple different combinations that you can make for your meal plan that still meet your macros. So they have that. Where was I going with this? And then this happened to us
That's
so
okay.
many times the other day, by the way.
Yeah.
What
When you
question
get
did
two
you ask
people
right now?
with ADHD in one room, probably. you know what I mean?
Non-medicated.
This happened with Jay last week too, or last month with Jay. We like lost our spot. It was really funny.
No, I was just gonna say, okay, meal plan with substitutions. What did you just say right now?
I said that.
Biofeedback.
Yeah,
Okay,
biofeedback.
great. Yeah. No, this is important. I'm glad.
Okay,
Thank you
cool,
for that.
cool. Go.
Okay, so the way I figure out
Hurry.
don't listen. The way I figure out my clients' biofeedback is every week we're doing weekly check-ins, and I ask them questions like, rate yourself 1 out of 10. How was your sleep, and give a short description why. Next question: your energy, your strength, your digestive system. Did anything out of routine occur this week? If so, what was that for you? How well did you track? How well did you use your measuring table to actually measure everything out? How accurate were you? Because in those moments, you have your clients, okay, being like, all right, this is what I ate. Let me take a screenshot, send it into my coach because she's going to review what I ate. And now I also have to give myself a feedback after I just looked at what I ate. And then two, like, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but if you take the time to start calorie tracking and you're consistent with it, you can't help but to just reflect. How did I feel after eating this food? How did I feel today now that I'm inputting the rest of my food? Do I feel still hungry? Do I feel like I have to poop? Do I feel like I didn't poop today? You know, did I feel bloated? Do I feel lethargic? Those are things you got to pay attention to so that the next day you're like, okay, I didn't feel the greatest yesterday. Maybe those food combinations don't work for me. So let me try something different today.
Yeah.
This is all stuff that I want my clients to take into consideration and note so that when I do have these conversations with them and I reply back and I'm like, hey, you rated your digestion out of 5. What was going on? Oh, well, I had too much fiber one day. So the next day I just cut out a little bit of greens instead. Cool. So we kind of figured out what the issue was there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's things like, hey, we're figuring out we're lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
Sweet. I love figuring that out with my clients.
Intolerant to, like, I'm intolerant to whey and eggs. Like, my body hates that. Yeah.
What?
It sucks. Yeah,
Dude, that's...
I'm almost positive. I haven't gotten it tested, but I'm almost positive I'm allergic to a whole egg because I'll have like 3 eggs in one sitting and I literally start to breathe heavy. And I either have to go to the restroom right away or I go, like, I'll have to breathe so hard.
Oh, yeah, your throat's closing up on you.
Yeah.
How
It's
about
terrible.
Egg whites? Can you do egg whites?
I can do egg whites. I mean,
But,
I
like,
had
the
200
actual,
grams
like,
of egg
the
whites
yolk?
this morning.
The yolk is what it
I just
is.
think it's the yolk. I genuinely think it's the yolk. I don't know, maybe.
That's a bummer.
I don't know.
I'm allergic to lactose and gluten. A lot of my clients are allergic to gluten too, so it's kind of cool that I have that experience and knowledge behind that so that I'm able to help them with substitutions.
Even if you're allergic to gluten, like, let's say you're not allergic to gluten is what I mean. Most people still aren't able to digest gluten very well. You know what I mean? Which is why everybody
because it's so processed nowadays.
is on such a sourdough kick because sourdough's fermented. And so your body's actually able to digest sourdough better. But even then, for people who are hypersensitive to gluten, they still can't eat sourdough. So, you know what I mean? So gluten is like not even a very good thing for you in general already. You know, if you are going to have something gluten, you might as well just have sourdough bread because it at least have an easier time on your body. But a lot of the time, people aren't even meant to digest gluten like that. You know
How
what I
about
mean?
if you make it from scratch?
I think you digest it a little better, but it's still gluten at the end of the day. You know what I mean? But I think it's a lot better than getting your Hostess, Wonder Bread or what. Yeah, I forget. I don't know if they're the same brand. You know what I mean? But the Wonder Bread that's like white. I mean, it's plain. You know what I mean? It's processed. They have like, why does this bread have so many ingredients in it? It doesn't need to have this many ingredients in this.
And that's
you know
another thing too that I'm talking to my clients about is like the quality of food that we're putting into our bodies is going to directly correlate how we feel. So yeah, let's say it does, like I mentioned earlier, fit your macros. But if you're consistently feeding yourself foods that are processed, packaged, but fit your macros, you're not going to feel the greatest.
Right.
So maybe let's pick and choose how often are we having the white bread. Or sometimes too, like my clients will say things like, oh shoot, like I can't run to the store right now, but this is what I have available to me. Like, would this work? Even though it's like white bread instead of wheat bread.
Right.
Or let's say it's like, like what's the difference between brown rice and white rice? Like these are conversations that I'm having with you guys. Take the biggest sigh right now. Yeah, these are conversations. I'll tell you, it's the glycemic index. So where this whole ideology that brown rice is going to triumph over white rice is that you have this glycemic index, and there's things that are higher, meaning they convert more into glycogen, more sugar when your body digests it, versus things that have a lower one. brown rice is on the lower end, whereas white rice is on the higher
Well,
end.
right. Just there's a lot of foods like that. Like me and my wife use brown coconut sugar instead
There you
of
go.
sugar
Yeah.
for our sweets and whatnot, just because it's lower on the glycemic index. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not going to hit our insulin so hard. You know, all
As
that kind
hard,
of stuff,
yeah.
right? And so we try to pay attention to that. But at the end of the day, and I would love your take on it too, it really doesn't matter to some extent.
Hey,
you know what I
this
mean?
is what I tell people all the time. What do you value?
Right.
What do you value?
Right.
Do you value your glycemic index?
People don't
People
even know.
don't even know, you know? And
No.
so when people, that's the next thing, you know, people be like, what's better, white or brown rice? I'm like, do you know about the glycemic index? They're like, no. I'm like, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Are you diabetic? I'm like, are you
calories
diabetic? They're
in.
like, no. I'm like, then it doesn't matter. Just
Right.
calorie track, just follow the plan. And I promise you, once you start to trust, because that's the thing too, you got to trust that your body can process these foods. I think that if you struggle with an eating disorder, or if you struggle with any kind of disordered eating, you have a hard time trusting that your body can successfully process these foods and it won't make you fat.
Right.
I think that's where all of this derives from is I'm afraid to get fat. I'm afraid to do something to my body. Or I'm afraid to feed something into my body that I don't know the outcome of what it's going to do.
Yeah, and you're a female coach, and you only coach females right now. So
Mm-hmm.
we're talking all this, fitness, nutrition right now. For you, you've worked with a lot of clients. What is usually the biggest issue you see in women who come to you? Is it they're not eating enough? Is it, maybe they're eating the bad foods, they have binge eating disorders, they don't know how to control their monthlies, right? And their cravings on their monthlies. And
yeah.
like, how do you work through those?
Well, those are good suggestions. So I've seen a plethora of different, like all the things that you've listed out. I've worked directly with all of those issues before, but the big underlining issue is that it comes from a lack of education around food. I think that when I get a new client, they're like, I'm under eating or I'm overworking out or I think I'm eating this much. It's just from a lack of education. And then at that point, you educate the client, you let them know what a carb is, what a fat is, what a calorie is, what a protein is, all of that.
Literally
So
down to the basics.
I sit down with them and I go over the basics with them because I do believe that if I want to teach you a good foundational education and knowledge behind what are we doing, what are we eating, what's out there, because I don't want my client to not work with me one day and be like, oh well, I need Jess. No, you don't. I want you to learn everything that you can so that you can be successful on your own. And then you can go and teach your family, your friend, your kids, how to eat healthy.
And if they want to stay because they love the program so much and they love you so much, then they stay.
Yeah.
Because they just love the program, they love the community with the program.
And there's
that
an
it comes with,
accountability
right?
too. Like
And
you
there's
can
that
have all
accountability.
education in the world and still not keep yourself accountable. So I think the number one issue is that women are making decisions out of the lack of education. I truly don't believe it's because they want to undereat or they want to overwork out, kill themselves on the cardio machine. I think that, there's just a lack of education when it comes to weight loss and actual fat loss, not just water weight. So I have to sit down and teach what a calorie deficit is and how to reach that. And then the second thing is to kind of what we mentioned earlier is like the lack of self-esteem, because there's only so much that I can teach. But if you're not implementing it because you love and you care about yourself and you want this, then all the education in the world isn't going to actually put the steps into play.
Right. I see what you're saying. And we talked a little bit before this podcast as well about fats and that with hormone production and whatnot. Have you seen cases like that where you've had women who are like super low on fats and you're like, dude, we got to bump this up because your hormones aren't going to be right if we're not, eating a proper amount of fats.
Oh, for sure. Majority of the cases I've seen where my clients are like, I'm not losing weight. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's have you calorie track for the first week before we even start your program. This is what I consider a recall week. This is where we recall all of your foods. What are you naturally gravitating towards? I want you to track it all. And then they send me screenshots of what they tracked. I review it to them. And then I give them my feedback based off of their natural eating habits. And I let them know, okay, look, if we're eating 20 grams of fat a day, this is why we're dealing with these gut issues. This is why we're dealing with brain fog. Maybe we're dealing with like brittle nails and you're feeling cold all the time. Well, all of these signs are your body's telling you that something's wrong. And so when I just bring the awareness, I think that my clients are like, oh, I want to fix this. I'm behind what you're telling me because now I recognize where I'm lacking, and it's just the education.
The self-reflection
fats.
too.
Yeah, fats are super important for hormone production, not just for females, but also for males as well. I would not bring your fats down than 30% of your natural intake. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for me, for example, I'm having 60 grams a day because that's just where my body's happy. It appreciates it.
Yeah.
I have regular periods every month, for example. I don't have the brain fog. My hair's growing long.
Yeah.
So
all those things that you notice because your diet is proper, you're eating the right foods in order to make sure your energy's high, your body's feeling great, all that kind of stuff is important. You know
things
what I mean?
like Brazil nuts, avocado, eggs, salmon, beefs, oils. I'm not a big fan of people using oils to get their fats though, just because they're a little bit. It's a slippery slope trying to track them.
Undersatiating too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's not voluminous. So if you're looking for a voluminous fat, I'd say avocado.
Sort of like drinking your calories in a way.
Yeah, not a big fan of that.
I feel like all of us coaches are not a fan of drinking your calories because I literally made a video a while back and people still bring it up to me to this day. I should make another one. Huh? I should redo it where I'm like, stop drinking your calories. It's so you know what it is? It's like very clickbaity too. I don't know.
It is.
I'm like, stop drinking your calories. Just stop drinking your calories. Yeah.
And it's for real. Like, stop doing it because you would really appreciate to have a 400 calorie meal versus your Frappuccino.
Facts, dude.
Yeah.
That's not going to satiate you.
That's
know
not
what's
gonna
crazy?
satiate
Some of the
you.
girlies would say, no, I want my caramel 2 pump, this pump, that pump.
I deserve it.
Okay, then I would say to the girlies.
I deserve it.
Right. And I've dealt with people like this, where they're like, I can't give it up. And I'm like, okay, where are priorities at? Because then we're at the beginning of this conversation.
Well, let's also talk about, you said substitutions earlier. Me and my wife have found a ton of recipes online where there's zero sugar, like less than 100 calorie Starbucks recipes that actually taste good. I know it's not going to maybe taste exactly like your Frappuccino, Wappuccino, I don't know. but
yeah.
But it's going to taste at least somewhat good.
Somewhat similar. And okay, then you're dealing with two types of people. The people who are like, I'm okay with substitutions. I'm okay with the sugar-free. And then there's people who are like, no, I don't want to get rid of it. It's either this or nothing.
Yeah.
And then the this or nothing are the people who end up falling off and going back to it anyways, because when you're dealing with a limited mindset, there's only so much a coach can come in and say, hey, we got to change this. Hey, let's make substitutions. Let's compromise. Let's meet in the middle. And if you're still dealing with a client who is like, no, it's either this or nothing, then I have to say, okay, you know that you're going to end up going back to that. So let's not have an all or nothing mindset. Let's instead figure out a way to implement maybe the Frappuccino one time a week.
Right.
Versus Monday through Friday.
Yeah, and are you really intentional about the wording that you use with clients? Like, instead of saying cheat meal, do you say flexible day of eating, or do you say cheat meal? Like, do you care about stuff like that?
I say treat.
Treat.
I say treat. It's
That's
a treat.
a good way to put it.
It's a treat. I don't want you to think you're cheating. Ooh,
Yeah, you know what I mean?
You're
That's what it
treating
sounds like,
yourself.
right?
Yeah, you are treating yourself. And so when I talk to my clients, I'll tell them like, what are you guys gonna do for your treat meal this week? Oh, I'm gonna go out on a date with my boyfriend.
That's so smart. I'm gonna start doing that.
Because I'm like, yeah, you guys deserve to treat yourself because you worked so hard during your training sessions. You guys have been dedicated. And I allow my clients to have one a week. If they want to do more than that, then it's gonna show, and it will show in your body. So that's what I tell them.
And that's what I tell people is, hey, if
you don't have to have it every week either.
Yeah, if we look at it like a grade in school, like if you have 7 good days, that's an A+. If you have 6, we're at a B, but we're like almost at a C.
Yeah.
But if you give me like only 5 good days, now we're at a C. So we're gonna get average results.
No, that's a good
You know
way
what I
to
mean?
put
And
it.
then if we're at 4, 3, now we're like, you're flunking. Like you're barely gonna see anything, if that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I like to tell my clients, give me.
You're like, what are you doing in the class?
Yeah, give me 6 or 7s. Give me A's and B's. We can work with A's and B's. You know what I mean? But once you
need
start,
effort.
and even some C's, hey, I'm okay with that. You'll still make it. You'll still graduate. You know what I mean? A's, B's, and C's get degrees. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So as long as we're giving some sort of effort,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
And one thing too, I had to recognize, like as a personal trainer, that my expectation of what I want my clients to look like and achieve may not be theirs. And so, like me, I have high expectations of myself, so naturally I put that on my clients, and I had to recognize that if they don't see the vision for themselves, then it's always going to be like a heartache for me when they don't have the A+ report, right?
Right.
Because for them, they're like, well, I'm doing a C. This is good enough for me.
Yeah.
So that's also the thing about coaching too, and maybe the verbiage that to answer your question is like, you have to just be on the same level and understanding of what your client's expecting of themselves and where they want to go. Because you can also run into the slippery slope of pushing your client too much, and they're like, I actually don't appreciate all of the restraint around what I can do, and now I feel the need to, take a whole month off because I just need to go back to my life.
Yeah.
When I never want, my clients to feel like this was one size fits all. Instead, this was, how can we fit this to you?
And it
how
all
can we
comes through education.
That too, in the approach, and like I said, it's coming through the education, knowing what we know now. Okay, now that I know this information now, I know what a carb is. I know how to diet. I know what fat loss is. I know, in order to see fat loss, I have to be at this calorie set. But I also have to work out at least 4 times a week. Okay, where can I fit this in at? And what does that look like for me? And how long can I stick to that, right?
Yeah, because for everybody, it's not as sustainable.
Yeah, and then too, like, what's the fun in getting the dream body for only a week, because that's how long you were able to sustain the last 4 months, and then now you're just like, oh, screw it, I went on my vacation, I can eat and go back to however I was the week before.
And we had talked about this a little bit before the podcast as well, when it comes to just figuring out something that works with your day that's sustainable. Yes, 5 to 6 meals might be great for somebody who can have that many meals throughout the day. But if you're an individual who works all day, then just have 2 big meals and a snack at the end of the night. Or have, 1 small meal, 1 big meal, 1 small meal, and then a snack at the end of the night.
Yeah, for anyone who's listening, let's say your calorie goal is 2,000 calories at the end of the day. It does not matter, quote unquote, does not matter. If you eat 2,000 calories split up into 6 meals, your body will still intake the food the same way at the end of the day, because your body's on a 24-hour clock.
Yeah.
So whether you have it in 6 meals split up evenly into calories, or they're all messed up and they're all, evenly distributed, it doesn't necessarily matter. Or because what matters is how well you were able to get in your meals. Were you able to finish it all? Were you able to digest it all without any issues? And can you repeat the same thing the next day?
Yeah.
If not, okay, you didn't get it all 6 meals because maybe you were busy, you were tired, you went to bed early, you forgot about it. So what could we do the next day? Maybe we could do 4.
Right.
Hey, 4 was too hard for me to do. All right, let's do it into 3. But what you're doing is you're not just taking out the meals, you're instead combining them to make them bigger. So, you got to ask yourself, am I somebody who has a bigger stomach? Can I eat bigger meals? Personally, I can't. I love to eat 4 to 5 meals a day. When I was in prep, I loved the 6 because my days were just a lot longer, and you are a lot more active during prep, so you appreciate the consistency in your eating.
Yeah. You're taking like 10,000 steps a day, along with at least 5 times of training every week, and so you're burning a ton of calories, and so you need that food throughout the day to sustain that energy.
Yeah, but if, let's say, you're somebody who works a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and your main job, you're sitting at a desk, well, I'd say make sure you have your breakfast before you leave home. Take your lunch with you. Take a snack, because a majority of the time you're going to want something to snack on. So make sure that it fits your calories before you eat it, and make sure you have dinner ready for you to cook when you get home, if not prepped, which would be even better.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is that, a lot of these people are coming off work, they're tired, they're exhausted, they see the Taco Bell line, they're like, yeah, let's just do that.
Yeah, convenience.
Chipotle, let's just do that, or I'll just grab, to go, like takeout, Chinese takeout. And 2, like, if you're consistently running on this basis of on the fly, when are you actually going to have time to sit down and strategize?
Right.
That's what I tell my clients. Like, you have to sit down and strategize with me, if not with yourself at the beginning of the week. Okay, what does my schedule look like this week? Do I need a meal prep for Monday, Tuesday only?
Yeah.
Can I do, home cooked meals on Wednesday? What does that look like? And it's just teaching your clients like how to think through that process as well. Think ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true. You have to. What is that saying that goes? You either fail to prepare or prepare to fail, something like that. I might be saying it backwards or wrong.
Who would always say, you stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Oh, okay, something like that.
Yeah.
But the point is taken, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's better to prepare for the moment than to wake up the next day and be like, oh crap, I didn't do anything that I thought I was going to do or wanted to do.
Oh, majority of the time when we fall off plan is because you didn't plan.
Yeah. You plan to fail or fail to plan.
Yeah.
That's the saying. There you go. I got it now.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's what it is. You know what I mean? And so even though a lot of people struggle with, waking up early, or preparing things the night before, once you do those things, I always tell people like I actually get more time when I'm meal prepping if I know what I'm eating throughout my week than if I don't. Matter of fact, I get so much more time that I don't even know what to do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's less thought that goes into it. Sometimes I can sit for 20, 30 minutes just debating, do I want Wingstop or do I want In-N-Out? Or you know what I mean? And it's like I could just sit there, like I'll back and forth with my wife, like, what do we want? I don't know. What do you want? And it's like you waste all this time just talking about what you want, and then you gotta go, and then you gotta wait in the line, and I'm like, it ends up taking 1 or 2 hours anyways, and then you
eat it, and you're like, dang, this didn't even hit.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you throw buffalo sauce on anything, I'm good. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Yard House. Oh man,
they're buffalo wings.
They're wings and tenders that he always gets. He gets both.
You know what's funny is me and my wife had went to.
I'm a chicken wing person too.
Yeah, me and my wife had went to Yard House not too long ago, and I have a client. Shout out Delina who works there, and it was funny because me and my wife are sitting down. We're like on a date and we're eating all the food, and she gets the garlic fries. And she's like, man, these garlic fries don't hit. They don't hit the same that they used to. And I'm like, nah, like they're the same. Like, don't even trip. I'm like, you just haven't been here in so long. And come to find out, I tell Delina, she's like, yeah, they changed the fries completely.
You're just gaslighting her.
You're just lying to your wife, bro. She didn't even know it.
I know. I genuinely thought it was the same fries. And so I come back. That day, and I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry.
You're like, you're right, babe. They didn't hit the same.
Yeah, they definitely changed it. I just assumed that they didn't. I should have
telling yourself that they're good too. Like, they're good. I swear.
Because I was eating them. I was eating them, and like they're the same to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And so I'm like, nah, you're tripping. Like these are the same fries. What are you talking about?
Are they really different?
Yeah, I guess they made them like with more preservatives and stuff like that, so that just steers me away from them even more. Yeah. But basically they can be hotter for longer. I don't even know how that's like weird. You know what I mean? I'm like
chemicals and bad stuff,
crap like that. You know what I mean? But yeah. So we've talked a lot about nutrition. We talked a lot about God, and just to touch a little bit on training because I know we're probably at the end, towards the end of us speaking today. What does your split look like, and what do you recommend to other female?
Ooh, so good. So I train right now for bikini competing.
And what is the focus of that? Just
so you're looking for an even ratio, top to bottom. You're looking for necessarily like an X frame, but more of like an hourglass. You're looking for softer shoulders, nice soft glutes, an even distribution of muscle for the glutes, hamstrings, and quads. So you don't want one or the other muscles kind of dominating. Yeah, you want an even look top and bottom.
So your split.
My split is Monday I'm training glutes with a little bit of hamstrings. Tuesday, I'm doing back and biceps. Wednesdays, I'm doing quads and hamstrings. And then Thursday, I'm doing shoulders and triceps. Then Friday, I'm doing glutes if they feel good again. But if not, then I'll probably take like an off day. Usually I try to take an off day on Thursday or Friday. It just depends on my body. And then we push into Saturday and we're training either what was left over for that day. But
and so for your split, because of
it's 3 lower body days and 2 upper body days.
Okay, so because of your split and what you're focused on, it seems like a lot of it is mainly posterior.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're hitting a lot of hamstring, a lot of glutes, right? And so what would you say is helped you grow that part of your body for the longest period of time? Like, do you have a staple bread and butter combo that you go like hip thrusts, hyperextensions? Like for me, like for my lady clients, it's always like, hey, we got to go heavy hip thrusts. It might look scary, but and I always give this example this is the example I give is, imagine how you look now, right? Like you have the glutes that you have now, you have the lower body that you have now, and you're lifting, let's say 125 right now. Imagine how your body will look when you're lifting 315 on this exercise. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason for your body to not change, right? Because it has to adapt to hitting 315 on hip thrusts. Yeah. Like your glutes have to be big enough to hit hip thrusts for 315. You know what I mean? With good form, right? And so
okay, so to answer your question, one thing just to reiterate before I move on, I train this way because I need more lower body. Like when I got evaluated by Kim Odo and Sandy, the head judge of the bodybuilding competitions, they let me know where your upper body is at right now, do not put any more mass on it because it will topple over your bottom. Ooh, so what I got to do is just maintain what I have up top, so that does change my training style when it comes to my upper body days, but for my lower body days, I'm still pushing. Okay. So for girls who are wanting to start out, and you're interested in growing your bottom half, personally, I found the most glute growth when I did glutes on a Monday and glutes on a Friday. And I completely rested them in between and split up my quads and hamstrings in between. Although you ask other women, and I've asked, because I was dabbling a little bit more into wellness training before I got into bikini competing. So their style of training is they're training legs 4 times a week, and they have enormous legs. Now that's just goes to show how much adaptation comes into play and how well execution is, because you can be executing multiple sets of legs 4 times a week, but how well is your body recovering and how well is it responding?
Yeah.
If your body's not responding well to it, then maybe you need more rest in between. Yeah. And that's essentially where I was at. I don't respond well when I overtrain my glutes. If not, I injure myself more. Like I notice I feel a little bit of strain on my right glute, and I'm always like rubbing it out.
Well, and overtraining just isn't good in general. Like I always tell clients, you want to do the least to elicit the most amount of progress.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if you can get away with that,
yeah,
you're better off doing that so you can recover and grow faster.
That also gives you room to improve, right? So like if you start off balls to the wall, like how much do you have to really continue to
if you're hitting
progress?
6 days a week doing 3 or 4 lower body days or 2 or 3 upper body days.
And that was the biggest mistake I made going into my fitness journey, is that I was doing that because that's what I thought, that this is how to get there quick.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of people end up taking that route, is because they want to get there quick. And so being patient is the number one thing. If you are wanting to grow your glutes, like make sure you're foam rolling them, make sure you're taking care of the recovery with your lower body. That was one thing that I wish I would have done a lot more sooner, is that, hey, you're training your lower body so much. Why are you not getting massages? Why are you not spending more time in the sauna, like actually doing your stretches in there? Get the Theragun, start Theragunning your quads out, your calves, like foam rolling everything, because you're spending so much time breaking down that muscle tissue. You want to make sure that it's recovering efficiently.
And let's just say you don't have all of those things. You can get the most basic things around the house and just stretch, right? Or I mean, a foam roll is so cheap on Amazon, so cheap, but if you can't do any of that stuff, just sleep better.
Stretch
and stretch too. But
sleep,
sleep is key. Like if you can get much better sleep over time, you're like 8 hours, 9 hours a day. And I know for some people that sounds so foreign, like what are you talking about? I only sleep 6. But if you could sleep more, you know what I mean? Like that's gonna be a game changer.
Well, what the world is telling you is so opposite to what actually is beneficial. It's like sleep less, work hard, go out, have fun. And it's like, that's not really gonna get you to the goals that you want in the life you look up to when you look on Instagram. Like all these people that you look up to, they have their priorities in line. They're going to bed early. They're making sure that their water bottle's filled up. They're making sure that they're not hitting the snooze when they have their 5 o'clock, training session in the morning. So I think it just really boils down to like having your priorities in line and seeing the value in implementing these things because you love yourself.
Right.
Because you want better for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. On that note, I really appreciate you coming out, and I'm so happy. Like the first half of the podcast was just all about God, because the last few episodes have been so about fitness, which is totally fine. Yeah. And with a little bit of God in there, but I really appreciate the faith talk. Yeah. Because I feel this is why I made the podcast, and this is why I called it Righteous and Real, right? Because I want a place where we can talk about what righteousness looks like. Yeah. Not saying I'm perfect and I'm super righteous and I'm this and that, but how can we have more morals and more values in a world where that's not existent? That point
to that, yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
and
absolutely.
So, I'm just glad that we were able to have that conversation and also touch on like how to physically take care of your body once that spiritual part is in line, right? And maybe sometimes the physical comes and then the spiritual comes after, but always put your faith first. But
for sure.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Definitely probably gonna have to have you on another time for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Shout out your Instagram, because I literally I will forget. I'll never live it down. I felt so bad. I had Austin on the podcast. You know Austin at Too Aesthetic. I'll keep shouting him out every episode so he knows.
Stop. Did you call him like his name, like at Austin Areola?
No. I didn't even shout him out. I just forgot. And so I'm like, all right, see you guys. And then he's like, shout out to Aesthetic. And then I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. So wait, what's your Instagram? Where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram. It's the main place where I'm interacting with everybody. It's Jess with 3 S's Marie Fit.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yep.
So everybody's.
Yeah, I'm
you're
working on my
about-
website right now, so that's the super exciting thing about it. I'm going to be
Sweet.
launching the summer challenge coming up at the end of the
Sweet.
month, so stay on the lookout for that.
Yeah, there you go. I just launched my website too.
Let's go,
See, we're
yeah.
launching websites out here.
Oh yeah.
Professional. All right. Well, thank you guys for
Thank
coming
you
on this
so
podcast. If you listen to it, I forgot my outro.
It's okay. Just
But stay righteous, stay real. We out.
See ya. Thank you.
There you go.